You've probably been told at some point in your life that you feel too much, notice too much, worry too much, care too much, think too much. Too much is one of the most common phrases used to describe traits that don't fit a comfortable middle. But here's what almost never gets explained. Many of the traits labeled as too much aren't malfunctions. They're amplified versions of abilities every human has, turned up to an intensity most people never experience. And in the right context, that same intensity stops being a liability and starts being something close to a superpower. This video breaks down 5 real, well-documented hyper traits, heightened human abilities that get mistaken for flaws simply because the world wasn't built with their intensity in mind. Roughly 1 in 5 people fall into a category psychologist Dr. Elaine Aron termed highly sensitive person, or HSP, a nervous system that processes sensory and emotional information more deeply than average. A shift in someone's tone, a subtle change in a room's energy, a barely noticeable inconsistency in a plan. A highly sensitive person catches all of it, often before anyone else in the room does. Framed as a weakness, this looks like being easily overwhelmed. Framed accurately, it's an extraordinarily precise early detection system. Highly sensitive people are frequently the first to notice a friend is struggling, the first to sense tension before an argument breaks out, the first to catch a small but important detail everyone else missed. The trait isn't fragility, it's resolution, a nervous system with a higher definition picture of the world, which happens to also pick up more noise along with the signal. Hyperfocus, most commonly discussed in the context of ADHD, is the ability to become so deeply absorbed in a task that time, hunger, and the outside world seem to disappear entirely. On an ordinary day, this looks like forgetting to eat lunch or losing 3 hours without noticing. In the right context, it's the same mental state that produces obsessive level mastery. Many of history's most significant creative and scientific breakthroughs came from people capable of sustaining single-minded focus far beyond what a typical attention span allows. The catch is that hyperfocus is notoriously difficult to direct on command. It activates for what genuinely interests the brain, not necessarily what's on the to-do list. The people who learn to work with this trait rather than fight it often produce work at a depth and pace that steady, evenly distributed attention simply can't match. Hypervigilance, a heightened, constant scanning of one's environment for potential danger, is often discussed only in the context of trauma, and for good reason. It frequently develops as a nervous system adaptation to unpredictable or unsafe environments. It comes at a real cost, including chronic stress and difficulty relaxing even in safe settings. But it's worth naming the underlying ability honestly. A hypervigilant nervous system is exceptionally good at reading rooms, detecting inconsistency, and noticing the earliest signs that something is about to go wrong in people, in plans, in environments. This is precisely why so many people with a hypervigilant baseline gravitate toward and excel in high-stakes fields: crisis management, security, emergency response, negotiation, where the ability to detect danger a few seconds before anyone else isn't a burden. It's the entire job. Some people don't just recognize another person's emotional state intellectually. They experience an echo of it directly, almost as if the feeling were contagious. Researchers studying emotional contagion and high-trait empathy have found this isn't imagined. It maps to measurable differences in how strongly a person's brain mirrors the emotional states of people around them. Left unmanaged, this can be genuinely exhausting, absorbing a room's tension, a friend's grief, or a stranger's frustration as if it were one's own. But this same wiring is what makes certain people extraordinary at therapy, caregiving, teaching, leadership, and any work built on truly understanding another person from the inside rather than guessing from the outside. The people others describe as just knowing how someone else feels usually aren't guessing. They're receiving the signal directly. Chronic overthinking is almost always framed purely as a problem, and it certainly can become one when left unchecked. But underneath the anxiety, the underlying mechanism is a simulation engine, a mind that automatically runs multiple possible outcomes of a decision, conversation, or plan before it happens. This is precisely the cognitive skill that underlies careful strategic planning, risk assessment, and contingency thinking. A mind that reflexively asks, but what if this happens instead, is, at its core, running the same process a chess player, a surgeon, or a strategist trains for deliberately. The difference between anxious overthinking and strategic foresight often isn't the mechanism. It's whether the simulations are pointed at a real, actionable problem or left running with nowhere productive to go. Every trait covered in this video shares the same underlying pattern: an ordinary human ability turned up to an intensity most people don't experience that causes friction in environments built for the average setting and becomes a genuine advantage the moment it's placed somewhere that actually needs that intensity. This is why the same trait can look like a disorder in one context and a defining strength in another. A hypersensitive nervous system struggles in a chaotic, open-plan office and thrives as a therapist. A hyper-focused mind struggles with a rigid 9 to 5 and thrives building something of its own. The trait itself rarely changes. What changes is whether the environment around it was built with that intensity in mind. If you've spent your life being told you feel too much, notice too much, or think too much, it's worth asking a different question than, how do I turn this down? The better question is, what environment, what work, and what kind of life would this intensity actually be an asset in? Too much was never really the problem. It was intensity without a place to go. Mastering your mind isn't about muting the volume on who you are. It's about finally pointing it somewhere it was built to be useful. If this resonated with you, subscribe. Because next week, we're breaking down how to actually find the environment that fits an intense mind, instead of forcing an intense mind to fit an average environment